Hi, welcome to Roll or Die, your place for all things tabletop. Today, we're going to take a look at Dune. The legendary game has been reprinted and maybe streamlined a little bit by Gale Force 9 and is now available again on shelves.
Absolutely. We shot a little video of some of the components and how it works and the board. So let's jump right in and take a look at Dune.
In the game of Dune, you're presented with 6 factions. We'll briefly go over what their unique play abilities are, and then I'll show you what their components consist of. So the first faction, we have the Bene Gesserit, basically the Jedi Witches. This faction specializes in free transportation because they get a ride down to the planet whenever any other force is delivered. And they also have a unique ability where they can try to predict the winner of the game. They have to pick the faction and the turn. If they are correct, they are the sole winner and everyone else loses. Next up, we have the Fremen, the people that exist on the planet. They have the unique advantage of not being devoured by the sandworm, which we'll show later. They also have heightened movement, and they do not have to pay to ship in. They're already on the world. And we have House Atreides, the heroes of the story. They are psychic. They get the unique advantage of seeing what treachery cards become available in the marketplace when everyone else has to bid blind. They also get to ask players a question about what they're putting onto their dial later when we show the battle wheel. The evil and treacherous Harkonnen clan. The Harkonnens get more traitors than anybody in their hand at the opening deck at the start of the game, and they also can carry more treachery cards. They can carry 8 while everyone else is stuck with 4. Definitely the player for those that are feeling a little treacherous. The Emperor. The Emperor is the richest player. They get all the money that is spent during the bid phase. So the resource in this game, I say money, the resource is spice. No one will have more spice than the Emperor. And finally, we have the Spacing Guild. They make their money shipping the forces down to the world. So as players come in, instead of paying the bank, they have to pay the Spacing Guild. The Spacing Guild also gets the unique advantage of having special movement rules while they're on the planet. So, once you pick your faction, you get your shield here to hide your components and your spice, and you also get your card. The game was nice enough to give us these little reference cards to tell you all your abilities. They also have advanced rules. For the purposes of our review, we are only going over the basic game rules. Once you get your faction, you also get your leaders, which are represented by these discs, and their combat strength, usually going from 1 to 5, although that depends on the faction. For instance, the Bene Gesserit are all 5s. They don't have any weaker leaders, such as this 1, or is this 2. And finally, you have your forces. Each faction has 20 unique forces that they can deploy to the world to do their battles. So the next segment, we're going to jump into the board and show you how everything works together. Okay, so now we're going to look at the board, and I will go over the general gameplay and concepts that you're going to experience in this game. This isn't going to be a teaching example. This is just to get you an idea of sort of how the game flows and what the strategic decisions are. So, as you see, the board lays out the world of Dune. To win this game, if you're not in an alliance, you need to control 3 of the strongholds on the map. There's 5. We'll get into it a little bit later, but if you form an alliance with a player, you have to control 4 out of the 5 strongholds. The map is laid out in these different sections. Now, what can be a little confusing at first is that some of these sections are just purely for the storm, and it's these pie slices that you see coming in. Whereas the region, for example, this specific region, is actually existing between 2 of the storm sections. But for purposes of spice and armies, it's a single province. Now, the way this board is set up, you can see that we have 3 different forces and 3 strongholds. It's still early game, it just turned 2, so no one is close to winning yet. The game does make it easy for all the phases of a turn, as it lays it out here across the map, so you're just going to move. The storm is one of the key concepts of this game, as it wipes out forces and it wipes out the spice that's on the surface of the planet. So that you can see what we're looking at, the forces that are down there are colored towards their faction, and then the spice are simply these brown tokens that have a number on it. Right now we just have 2 spice blows that are on the surface of the world, and they're in these 2 provinces. The very first thing you do is always move the storm. The first player and the person to their right will pick a number on their battle wheels, which I'll show you here. They pick secretly between 1 and 3. And then they reveal at the same time, and that is how far the storm moves. So for purposes of your own planning, it can move as short as 2 sections or as long as 6. If that was their bid, 2 and 2, the storm would move 4. The arrow shows you which way the storm moves, and then you account for what's happened. The storm blew through this section and it has wiped the spice off the map. That is always one of your factors in considering when to go for it, is where that storm is located if you're trying to get spice and increase your resources. It's also important to note which forces are safe from the storm. If you're in these sandy areas, you would have been wiped out and your forces go down to the Tlaxu tanks to regenerate. If you're on these mountains, which is the darker brown, you're safe. And if you're a stronghold, you're safe. And if you're in the polar sink, you are safe from the storm. So that storm move did not affect any of the forces that we saw. But the next turn, those Fremen units are not safe. From there, you move on. We'll go through some of this stuff a little bit later. We'll talk about the treachery cards. But what I wanted to point out on this map are where the battles are going to take place. No one is invading the stronghold, so nothing will occur there. The polar sink is a neutral space, so it does not matter how many forces are in there, there will not be a battle. And finally, we only have one battle on this map, and it's the Emperor versus the Spacing Guild down here in this section. Now, the units do appear to be separated by the storm, but keep in mind, as we said, we're looking for the province. Since these two share a province, they will fight. And we're going to go over in the next section the battle wheels to show you how that works. So, as you can see, this is the general layout of the board. Each turn, you're going to be moving your forces. You're going to be bringing in your forces from off-world. You're going to be regenerating your forces. Everything is paid for in spice. And that's why it's such a key resource. You need to figure out where it's going to come up. Now, the Atreides faction gets an advantage. They get a peek at this deck. So the Atreides player would know that the next spice blow is going to happen on the South Mesa. The spice deck has one last secret, and that is the Great Worm. When that pops up, the worm will go to the last spice blow, arriving and destroying all the forces and the spice. Now, the key thing when this happens, when that worm shows up, it's the one time in the game where the players can do a nexus and create an alliance with one another. That lets them share important abilities, and they have alliance cards that they'll swap. It also changes the game winning condition for this alliance, and now they need to control 4 strongholds together instead of 3. So coming up, we'll quickly go over the battle wheels and show you the treachery cards, and then we'll come back and give you our final thoughts on Dune. Okay, for the last bit of our gameplay overview, we're going to cover now the battle wheels and the treachery cards, which is how combat is resolved in Dune. Now, the battle wheels, each player in the combat will choose a number. This is the number of forces that they are contributing that are going to die no matter what in the combat. And that's the tricky thing. How many forces are you willing to lose to win? Because even if you win the battle, those forces will all be removed from the map, and your opponent, whoever loses everything no matter what they bid. The other complicating factor is that you must submit a leader to the battle, and you plug them right here into the wheel. So, in secret, each player dials up a number of forces. We'll say for this example, the Emperor is going to contribute 3 that'll die no matter what, and the Bene Gesserit thinks they have the edge. They're just going to contribute 1. Both players reveal their dials simultaneously, and we look at the scores. For purposes of this calculation, the Emperor has a force strength of 6, 3, the forces he contributed, plus his strength of his leader, 3. The Bene Gesserit also has a 6. 1 force contributed, 5 strength on the leader. So it's going to come down to the treachery cards to determine the winner here. Each player can play 1 offensive item and 1 defensive item. There's poisons, projectiles, and a number of other cards, but for purposes of this example, we're just going to focus on projectile and poison. So starting with the Emperor player, he's played a projectile weapon and defense against poison. This is going to hit the Bene Gesserit, because the Bene Gesserit only played a defense against poison, the weapon then killing that leader. Going back the other way, the Bene Gesserit has played a poison weapon, but the Emperor, through intelligence or luck has played a defense against the poison. So the way this is resolved is the Bene Gesserit leader is killed and removed from the battle before the final tally. These wheels spin a little bit. And now we look at the score again to determine the winner. It's a strength 6 against a strength 1. The Emperor has taken the day. The Emperor will lose the 3 forces, but get to keep the treachery cards that were played. The Bene Gesserit loses all their forces, even more than the one they bid, and they also lose their treachery items. And that is how combat is resolved in Dune. Okay, and we are back. So that is how Dune plays.
Yeah.
Now we're going to give you our thoughts on it. In our review structure, we want to look at a few things. So in Roll or Die, we look at the theme, components, the ease of play or how complex it is, the decision space on an individual turn, the replayability, and just the overall enjoyment of the game.
Yeah. So when it comes to theme, Adam, how do you rate Dune?
Well, Dune is a notoriously tricky property. As if you've seen the Lynch version of the film, it's tough to adapt.
Yeah.
It's a desert planet with giant space worms, and everyone's fighting over a resource called spice.
So how do you create a board game like that?
You make a war game.
There you go.
So you have the factions in here. There's 6 factions that we showed you. And that theme just comes through. All the houses are different. And the fun thing about this game, when you're done playing it, you kind of want to just go again and play a different house.
Yeah.
The theme shines because the Atreides faction is psychic, the Harkonnen faction is treacherous, and I don't think they could have done a better job with theming this area control war game.
Yep, absolutely.
So components. If there's a knock to this game, it's going to be on the components, and you saw them in the video. It's a balancing act. I think this is a great game. It retails technically for $50, but you can usually get it for about $40.
Sure.
If the place is running a little bit of a discount. It's an incredible game for $40.
Yeah.
The components also line up to that price. They're just
Yeah.
little tiny cardboard. The spice are all the same size. They have numbers on it. But I would have liked something, maybe the 5 is bigger than the 1.
Yeah. We're kind of used to that already with other punch-outs that, the coin sizes are a little bit larger and smaller. And I would agree.
And the military forces are just tiny little chits.
Yeah.
And you get a stack
very
of
small.
them. You get a stack of them. You have to count them. It's not miniatures you're moving around.
Yeah.
I would be tempted to home rule this and bring in some different components.
Yeah, I agree. I would just say they're okay at best, but for what you're paying for the game and actually getting a copy of Dune again for the first time,
yes,
it's definitely worth the value.
Okay. Ease of play and the complexity. This is a game you have to play once. It's tough to teach because all the factions are different.
Right.
And there's a lot of phases of the game. But I think once you get through a game, it all sort of clicks.
Yeah.
Nothing's overly complex, but I know when we got to the first battle, there were a lot of questions on the battle wheel.
Right.
Am I really going to lose these guys if I win? What will happen to my leader? What happens to my treachery cards?
Yep. And what is the factions? I played as the Bene. How do you say it?
The Bene Gesserit.
The Bene Gesserits, right?
The 4 switches.
Yeah, the 4 switches, and their special power is they can declare what you cannot play as your treachery card.
Yep.
And so we had some question, do I have to name the specific weapon, or can I just say
poison weapon?
Yeah, you cannot play a poison weapon this time. And we finally landed on you cannot play a poison weapon this time.
The rules are written pretty well. It's just,
it's one of those first time you play through, you're going to kind of learn it. But once you learn the basic rules, it's really easy to replay.
Yes. And the game may go fast. You can mess up in this turn and maybe leave a victory condition open for someone else in turn 2 or 3.
We played with 3 players. 4 players, yeah. And when certain players start in capital cities, if you're not paying attention before you can blink turn 2 or 3, all I need to be is in 2 other cities and, boom.
And forces are dropping in from space and can really drop into the strongholds. So you've got to pay attention to what everyone's doing.
Yeah.
Now let's get into the decision space. There's a lot of steps. You'll see it at the top of the board we showed off. You're going through a lot of phases where you have to think about things about moving your forces towards the spice, moving your forces towards a stronghold, and even making an alliance. Once a worm pops up, you have a nexus. The alliances are game changers.
Yes. And it's really important that if you make an alliance with somebody, that the other team, if they're Adam and Adam, you have to communicate really well, as we discovered in our game.
Hilarious misplay because my teammate and I were both Adam. And information was shared by the other alliance, and the wrong atom was mentioned. So there was a crucial misstep.
So yeah, you have to kind of pay attention there.
But alliances are fun because they're up there.
Oh yeah.
I formed an alliance with the Emperor player, thinking I got money now. He's the richest player. He can slide me money. He was broke. I didn't know that. I made an alliance with a broke Emperor, and you can break an alliance at the next Nexus if you want. So I actually thought about the fact I was in 2 strongholds. Maybe I should end things and make my own move for victory and just win by 3. So I love the decision space in this game.
Sure, absolutely. So what about replayability? What's your thoughts on that, Adam?
With 6 different factions, I think you're going to have a lot of replayability where people just want to try something else. Like, oh, I want to be the Emperor. I want to be the Space Guild and see the different types of play.
Yeah. All I know is that our first attempt at playing this game, the moment the game was done, you guys want to play again? And it was 4 unanimous, yes. Let's do it again. Yeah, okay, I'm just starting to learn it. Let's play this game again.
And the box says 2 hours. Our first game did not go that long, definitely. And then our later games, I don't know that we ever hit 2 hours. No, we never got to turn 10.
We never,
Because there is a hard cutoff. Once you get through your 10th turn, the game is over. Our games all ended before the 10th.
But was that also due to the fact that we're still learning how to play our factions?
But I'm saying we're under the time limit.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
For a 2-hour game.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is maybe if you learn your factions better, you'd be better at blocking, and maybe it might end up. I think the maximum this game plays is 2 hours, but I could be wrong.
That could be. It's 6-player max. We never got that high.
Yeah,
it would be longer with more players.
Yes, absolutely.
More death too. I mean, it would be almost comical all the battles.
Sure.
So, last thing we're going to touch on is the enjoyment of this game.
Yeah.
This is my first time playing Dune. I was very aware of this property in this game. I never really had a good chance to get it until Gale Force 9 reprinted it.
Right.
And I'm a very happy owner. This is a game that I feel like I can pop out. It's more palatable to people to play than, say, Forbidden Stars, a game I absolutely love, but is a very steep learning curve.
Right.
Or Twilight Imperium. It's not as epic as those games, but I love the area control. I love the negotiations. I love the alliances.
Yeah. It's a great war game for the size of the board, and it's like everything's compressed and compact, and it all takes place right. You kind of focus your attention in, and so it becomes a very fun. Instantly. There's no like sneaking over to this side of the board and making a little move.
Right.
It's all right there for everybody to see, which is fun.
One thing we did not cover in our board game overview, because we weren't getting into all the areas, there's trader cards. These trader cards are handed out in secret, and you have these leaders on the opposing side that you can flip and make them automatically lose a battle. And that determined a game for us.
It did. It was very fun.
I had sat on this trader card from the Harkonnen player, and the first time that person attacked me with a specific general, I didn't reveal it. I thought I'd sit on it and make them think maybe that one's safe against me. Final battle of the game for all the donuts.
All the donuts.
He attacked me with the right guy. And triumphantly, I flipped that card, put my hands up in the air, and it was the perfect victory for something like Dune.
Yeah, absolutely. So, final thoughts. What do you think overall about this game?
For this price, I think it's a must purchase. If you like this type of board game, if you want to go to war with your friends, make alliances, have strategic movement, I can't think of anything better at this price level.
Yeah, I'm in total agreement. Love the game. Price point is great. It's easy to teach. Once they play a few rounds and they see how the storm moves around it's just once you kind of catch on, it's not a hard game to play at all, but it is complex and it is fun. So yeah, I'm a big thumbs up for Dune.
And when you get this on the table, you can play it more than once. I don't think your friends are going to be opposed if a game goes pretty quick.
Yeah.
Going again.
Reset and start again.
Switch up factions.
All right. Well, I think that's going to wrap it up. Thanks for joining us today on this review of Dune. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, don't forget to like and subscribe below so you can receive all the latest content from the Pod 6 network.
Leave a comment below and let us know what you think of Dune if you've played it. Thanks for watching, and we hope to see you next time on Roll or Die.